Okay, and now I'm live. Okay, well, hi everybody. Welcome back to the show. The interview today is going to be with Dr. Will Tuttle. We've had him on quite a bit. Dr. Will Tuttle is an amazing animal rights and vegan activist. He is an author, a public speaker, very renowned in the space. He's written books like The World Peace Diet, that's been translated into over 16 languages worldwide. He's written Food for Freedom, The World Peace Way, and for me, this is the newest book that I've read of his, but it's been around for a while. Your Inner Islands, where he talks about developing intuition, and many, many more writings as well. And today we're going to be talking about one of his recent essays called The Seven Deadly Psyops. So I'll present to you. Here's Dr. Will Tuttle. Hi, Will. How's it going again?
Thank you, James. Doing great. And thanks everyone for joining us. And let's go ahead and jump in here.
Yeah, let's get started. But I'd like to say, I guess first off, this is our sixth interview, and it's the 10th that I guess the channel has. But it's the sixth with you. So six of the interviews are with Dr. Will Tuttle. So I know I was joking with my wife. I don't know, it was a few months back, and I said, I'm going to rename them, honey. I'm renaming all the interviews. It will no longer be the Above the Horizon interviews. It will be Talks with Tuttle, or maybe Tea with Tuttle. We could do, since I know you're a teetotaler, which I'm trying to get
teetotaler, right?
Yeah. But yeah, today we're doing an interview on one of your very profound, more recent writings, The Seven Deadly Psyops, and it's going to encompass, I guess, you framing those out to us, so we can be aware and have our wits about us in this day and age as realized, compassionate human beings, and see these things. And then also on top of that, work on developing our intuition, which you talk about so often in your writings, to, in a way, shield us and protect us from the kind of ill intent that these narratives exude.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, I'm excited about this.
So thanks. That's exactly what we're talking about. So what does that mean, though? The seven deadly psyops. It's kind of a reflection and a mirroring a little bit of an ancient or medieval, I guess you'd say, Christian teaching of the seven deadly sins. And the whole idea with the seven deadly sins is to try to cultivate a more kind, compassionate, caring, humble, and pure way of living in the world, so that we find happiness and also can create more harmonious society. And that's really the core of all world spiritual traditions. The ancient wisdom teachings from all the different traditions emphasize this kind of thing. And one of the main obstacles to spiritual understanding and wisdom is deception. And in some cases, like in the Christian tradition, the devil is very often referred to as the deceiver. And I think the thing we have to understand as people who are interested in compassion for animals, in health and environmental sustainability and so forth, is that our whole society in many ways has been deceived. All of us have been deceived in a variety of ways in an ongoing kind of systematic way. And that deception is really what breeds so much of the violence and misunderstanding and suffering and disease that we're experiencing. So if we can connect with the capacity we have within us to discern truth from falsehood, we're not only helping ourselves and our loved ones, we're helping the whole world. Because the more deception is unquestioned, the more a few people can dominate and exploit everybody else, because that's what's happening. So psyop, the word psyop is a contraction. It's from the intelligence community, from the CIA, basically. They run psyops, psychological operations. So if the CIA wants to overthrow a government in a foreign country, they'll go in and they'll stage a kind of a fake revolution and bring in somebody else that they want to have that'll serve the empire and get rid of the local the democratically elected government, and they use psyops to do that. Many different types of psyops. They'll take over the media. In fact, there's something called Operation Mockingbird, is part of the CIA, one of their main operations actually, which is basically to control radio, television, newspaper, magazines, not only in the United States, but globally. If you can control the media and control the narratives, then you can control the population. And so the military doesn't only do fighting with weapons and tanks and so forth. There's also a lot of fighting on the mental battlefield of the
Seemingly invisible.
mind,
Yeah.
really, the mind of the population. If you can control the mind of the population, you don't even need an army. You've got them. You've already got them conquered, right? You can conquer
Yeah.
the people anywhere if you can control what they think about reality.
Yeah.
So understanding that there are these psychological operations which are sustained deceptions that are basically serving an agenda, I think is very helpful. So I talk about 7 of these. There's a lot more than 7, many more. There's hundreds actually, but
Yeah.
these are sort of big ones. And so the biggest one of all is the first one, and that's what I refer to as herderism, which is animal agriculture, or the domination of animals for food, owning them as property for food, eating animal foods, meat, dairy products, and eggs. That I refer to as herderism because it's a practice of herding animals, and it began by herding them sort of out in the fields, but now it's been brought indoors primarily in factory farm operations and that kind of intensive animal agriculture. But it's the same mentality, it's the same action. So herderism refers to not only the behavior, and it's the core of our culture. We're killing millions of animals every day for food. It's the biggest thing we're doing. And it's also the mentality required of all of us living in this society to kind of go along with this. So
Yeah.
it's a deception because it's not necessary. Here I am, a longtime vegan. I haven't eaten any animal foods for 45 years, since 1980. I'm thriving. There's millions of people like me. We don't need to do this, right? This is only continuing to happen because of deception. People are deceived into thinking that we need to do this to get protein. The animals were just put here for us to eat. I mean, all these lies. It does it's fine. It doesn't hurt them. It's all based on lies. So that to me is the number one primary psyop, and it's an old one. This one goes way back. I would say centuries. It goes back thousands of years to practice, but as an actual psyop where it's being promoted by banks and corporations and government and media and Hollywood and everywhere, it's really being promoted, I think, in order to keep us unhealthy, to keep us divided, to keep us ignorant, and really to enslave us. Because the basic teaching is if we enslave others, then we're ripe for being enslaved ourselves. Really free people would never enslave animals. We would say, what the heck? I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So it's a psyop. I think it's a real psyop now, and it's something probably the most destructive of all psyops by
Shores
far.
up the rest. It shores up the rest.
It
And
does. It shores up the rest,
biggest
and
one.
it's the
Yeah.
foundation. It's the foundation for everything. Because if
Yeah.
we believe, we believe it, and the reason we believe it is because of our mothers and fathers and friends and neighbors and
Yeah.
doctors and minister, everybody, the priest, they're all doing
Yeah.
that from the time we're born. So it's very difficult to get out of it. We could talk the whole hour about that, but
Yeah.
I want to just move on and just give the other 6
Yeah.
briefly, because I think they all come out of this, or they support it in various ways. And they all are not good for us as human beings. Eating animal foods is not good for us as human beings. It makes us sick and unhealthy. And it's terrible, of course, for animals and ecosystems and future generations and hungry people and slaughterhouse workers and everybody who's involved with this whole thing. So that's number one. Okay, number 2 is something that I think is kind of invisible in some ways, but I refer to it as sexualization. This pervasive sexuality of everything, like sexualizing car parts in a car parts store. You have a girl in a bikini selling a wrench or whatever.
Yeah.
And really something that's I think is very insidious, which is the explosion of pornography in the last 20 years, and more and more, it's this mentality of seeing an other as an object to be used. That's really what it is. It's like I want to get something from someone, and it's either money. It's not money. It's sexual, something sexual, and it's used in order to manipulate. People use their sexuality to get what they want. They use force to get sexuality. I mean, the whole thing, and it creates terrible relationships. I think all kinds of problems in our
Yeah,
society.
sneaky too. It sneakily pervades in, and I was reading that
Yeah,
part of it, and I'll just briefly make this little thing. I was reading that one, I guess, the other day, and
yeah,
I realized that yeah, it sneakily pervades to where I could take stock of things that I've noticed in the past month or so, and then see what you're talking about. You know, now that you've mentioned it's so predominating, like it really goes kind of subtly or seemingly subtle, you know, perpetuating its flow, but it is there, and it is markedly creating a separatism and perpetuating the separatism of which herderism does. So I just
right.
wanted to add that, but it really is everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere, and it's a huge business. I mean, there's
Yeah.
gigantic businesses, fashion
Oh,
industries, and makeup and all these things to try to make people more sexually attractive to
yeah.
each other. All kinds of things, and advertising, and then movie stars and musicians, and it's
Even
the
in kid
sexual
movies. Even in kid
appeal
movies. Yeah.
is it's really, and it's degrading. It's very degrading. And there's massive amount of perversity, and then there's pedophilia coming in everywhere, where it's people are targeting children more and more at earlier ages, and the domination of women, sexual abuse of women, of course, all of these things, and actually of boys and men. Even I mean, it just go and animals. you know, it's something that
Yeah.
I think we have to realize it comes out of, though, the mentality of animal agriculture. It's the same mentality of seeing an object instead of a being. When we see a being, we have a sense of respect. If I see a cow or a pig or a chicken as a being, I am not going to pay someone to stab them so I can eat them. It's the same thing when we see another living being as a being, then we have a sense of respect. So sexuality, to me, is very simple. It's basically how we lovingly create children. It's a beautiful, spiritual, divine function.
Ceremony. Yeah.
And it's and breasts and reproductive organs and things are for that. But the problem is we're born into a culture where from the time we're little kids, just as our food is perverted, the two most fundamental things, food and sex, food is very perverted into violence and abuse and objectification and materialism. And sexuality, the same thing. It's perverted and abased and brought down to materialism and objectification of other beings. And so I went through this. I'll just say it briefly. I went through eating meat and dairy and eggs as a kid, growing up all the way up until my 20s. I was on all the sports teams. I was on the hockey team. I was on the
Oh,
football
cool.
team. So, I was in the locker rooms. I know all about talking about the girls and all the sex
Yeah.
and seeing them as
Yeah.
objects. And I was totally marinated in that. But I remember, I was never comfortable actually either. I killed my own animals when I was in my teens. In the summer. Some summers I went away to a summer camp where we did that, and chickens basically. And so I participated in, and I didn't like it, but I knew I was doing the right thing because you have to eat meat to be healthy.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the same thing with sex. Sex is really where it's at if you want to make it and be well respected, and all these things. So there's all this peer pressure, and but it's very harmful to healthy relationships, just like eating animal foods is very harmful to healthy relationships in our society and into our own health. So I was so glad when I decided to go on a spiritual pilgrimage when I was just turned 22 with my brother Ed, and we ended up after a few months giving up eating meat, and then a few years later all animal foods. And I found this actually very interesting. The whole sexual thing also evaporated. I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't. It became so ridiculous to look at like a woman as a sexual object. It was almost like repulsive. It's sort of like when I would smell meat burning, or people like that grilling meat, and they say, "Oh, that smells good."
Yeah.
As a vegan, after a while, you think it smells terrible. I mean, it's these poor. You think of the poor animal. So the sexualization of human beings becomes kind of this gross, ridiculous thing. It's like, what are people thinking of? You realize it's a very low vibrational activity. And what it does is it really brings us down to a lower level and makes us much more easily manipulated. So the more we
Yeah.
can raise our vibration to a higher level, so we're having a sense of kindness and respect for other living beings, whatever they are, other human beings, other animals, ecosystems in general, in life.
Yeah.
That's where real happiness and joy begin to blossom, and real love, and creating a healthy families. And for children, when adolescents are getting older, and kids are becoming adolescent, and then these sexual drives emerge. And in traditional societies, there was lots of ways where that energy was used creatively in sports, and in art and music and drama and all kinds of initiations and exploration and adventuring and going out into nature, and channeling the energy. This is a key point: is that sexual energy is energy, and we can sublimate the energy. We can bring it to a higher level and focus it on spirituality, focus it on creativity, focus it on something beneficial, on creating something beautiful. But
Yeah.
when we live in a society where the whole idea is to dominate and exploit the people, then you want to basically create movies and music and art and education that take that healthy energy and pervert it, and have them wallow in
Yeah.
pornography and objectification of each other. And then you have slaves. Then that's how you create slaves. So we are
Yeah.
enslaving ourselves if we don't understand that we are being targeted with a sexual psyop. It's a big psyop. We shouldn't play around with it. We should really stay above it and see ourselves as a being. Not This is whole push to see, well, like this idea, what we are sexually. We're not. We're spiritual beings. We're not physical objects, and we have
Yeah.
to really not fall for that divisiveness of all these different sexual identities.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Exactly.
it's just a
Perfect
way of
word.
dividing people. You divide them by race, by sex, by we're beings, we're consciousness, and
Yeah.
we shouldn't allow ourselves to be
Yeah. Very important to
manipulated
take
and
stock.
abused in that way. And
Yeah.
it's very insidious how that happens. So that's a big psyop that's been going on.
Yeah.
It's not that old. I mean, pornography didn't even exist 100 years ago. It's kind of a relatively new thing, and
Yeah,
um,
it really
it just
compounds us to think and see others as separate from us. Really compounds that notion and and just really hits it
yeah.
home that you are separate from me, I'm separate from you. Perpetuates these kinds of fires of competition that are underneath everything. I want more, more, more. More reference to metrics, measures, and quantifications. It really does a great job at compounding that
It does, and it also
separateness.
it really tears down family structures. I mean, this
Yeah,
whole promiscuity, the idea of having sex with all kinds of different people. I mean, it's just very destructive to family
yeah,
structures, to social fabric. It's
yeah,
devastating. If you want to destroy a culture and enslave the people, you promote sexual promiscuity and perversion and all this stuff. And it's very harmful. It comes out of
yeah.
animal. It's fundamental to animal agriculture, which
Well, I know.
is based on sexually abusing female animals, and male animals. I
Yeah,
mean, they masturbate the males. They put the females on rape racks. It's all sexual abuse. That's what animal agriculture is, and
incredible.
perversion.
It really is
So
incredible. And
yeah,
even when I'm doing outreach in public and I try to explain how the dairy industry is worse on an aggregated basis than the beef
right.
industry, and I kind of go into that, people are taken aback, but very quickly bounce back to their conditioned kind of status where, that's just what it happens. And you can see it. It's like the messaging is so potent and so thick. They've done such a good job to just take that away from us, that seeing others as beings. They've done such a good job, and
Yeah, right.
it's
That's
just kind of
true.
sobering to see that
Right.
reaction in person as well. Well, the next
Right.
one was materialistic science. I
Right.
think that's the next one
Now,
we were going to
you know,
talk
the
about.
thing is, each one of these we could talk for hours, but
Yeah, yeah,
briefly, in fact, my book, Food for Freedom, I go into a lot of these more in depth, but just
oh yes,
briefly, I don't
yeah,
want to spend too much time here, but materialistic science, you know, we have this idea that somehow science is going to save us. Like we have, you know, technology is going to come up and it's going to solve all our problems, and we'll have plenty of energy, and we'll have I don't know what's going to make us happy in materially.
yeah,
So the whole idea is just understand, and in a nutshell, it kind of goes back to the very beginning of science. You know, the very first science was human beings way back thousands of years ago when we first started dominating animals. The first science was how can we breed these animals, you know, systematically so that their offspring and their offspring and their offspring will give us more milk and more wool and more flesh and be more docile, more easily controlled. It's always Science has always been about dominating nature and dominating the female aspect. And so I think we have to understand that about science. It separates us from nature. And as science has continued, it's brought us some blessings. I mean, I like having a refrigerator as much as the next person. I'm not against
yeah,
certain things, but
yeah,
it's a tremendous price we pay for technology, and technology can be used against us, and it is being used against us. It can be used not only to create horrific weapons of mass destruction, which have been unleashed, but also surveillance systems that can be inescapable and to separate us from nature and have us all looking at our phones and not even communicating anymore and
yeah,
in person. And so I think we have to have a very deep questioning of science, and
yeah.
especially what I refer to and people refer to as scientism, which is the
Oh yes, we
materialistic
talk about that in Food for
science,
Freedom. Yeah,
yeah, that basically doesn't even admit that there's more to the universe than what we can actually
physical.
see
Yeah,
physically,
yeah,
which is a complete blindness. I mean, there's never been such a materialistic, philosophically materialistic society in the history of the world than our society today. And we've drifted the farthest away. I think we have a much higher percentage of people on medications for mental disorders and suicide, and so many problems psychologically because of being disconnected from nature. So the whole idea, really, I think, is to see that, as Gandhi said, we can use technology that's appropriate and to feel into what that is, but
yeah,
to not make technology or science into a god, sort of a god, a deity, and
yeah,
realize that our problems are solved basically by spirituality, which is essentially reducing our ego, the sense of being separate from nature and from each other, and realizing that there's one life living through all of us. As we quiet our consciousness, we can open to the inner light, which is always shining, and realize that the inner light within this one expression is in the every expression, and it's the same light. And then we have a sense of kinship and a sense of unity
we
with
just start to
others.
love
And we
everybody.
realize that we're
Yeah, because
one with
we're all.
all, the
Yeah,
source of all life,
yeah,
and that we're eternal. We were never born and we'll never die, and all life is the same way. This is the
yeah,
only foundation for true happiness. Happiness will never come from buying, getting, manipulating, dominating, controlling anything. In fact, that just takes us farther and farther away. And science, that's what science does, unfortunately. It doesn't give us truth, it gives us more data. And then the
yeah,
data, we try to figure out what the data means. And I used to teach college courses in epistemology, which is the study of how do you know that you think what you think is true is actually true. And
yeah.
you go down that rabbit hole. There's so many assumptions about reality that we don't even
Yeah.
question.
In the first
So
25 pages of this book, it talks about epistemology a little bit and a little anecdote from a student in class with a teacher and a certain dynamic that unfolds. It's so cool for you to bring that up. But yeah, how do we know what the right answer is? What a question to ponder. What a question to really ponder. So,
right. Yeah.
but yeah, materialistic science. Yeah, I think there's a quote in Food for Freedom that you let everybody know of, and it was one that Tesla said years ago, where if we were to, it had something to do with transitioning our study to the spiritual instead of always looking at the physical.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
the
this is
leaps
the
and
book right here.
bounds.
Yeah,
Oh, there's
yeah,
for
yeah,
free.
yeah. Tesla says, I have the quote in here that
Oh,
if
wow.
we
Oh,
if we would if we would um, look beyond just the material level to the
yeah.
levels of vibration and rhythm and energy, that we would make more progress in 10 years than we've made in many centuries in science. And I think that's true. I mean, our science is completely crippled by the materialism that's inherent in
Yeah.
science.
And underneath
So,
this materialism is a big financial engine and engines that are really running the show here as far as what presents, what's expressed, and what the right answer is. Big quotes there, but yeah, important things for
well,
sure.
that's number four is
Oh yeah,
number four
banking.
psyop is the banking system. So
Yeah,
that's the financial that brings in the financial, and that's the key point with we're talking about psychological operations. Basically, they're being orchestrated by a small number of people. And it's very sobering to realize, I think it's very interesting too,
yeah.
that 1/10,000th of 1% of the human population, a
Golly.
tiny, tiny minority,
Yeah,
has
that's crazy.
accumulated so much wealth that they are able really to control the entire population. If you pay the top 1 or 2% of the people, which is about between 80 and 160 million people. Those are the ones that are running the corporations and are wealthy and professors in the universities and
Advantages.
politicians and government. You
Yeah,
pay those people, they take care of everything else. They're happy.
yeah.
They're getting lots of money and high prestige and so forth. But the 1/10,000th of 1%, just a few, maybe 8,000 people, they have the ability. And so the whole thing is to just create a narrative that keeps everyone well controlled. And these are the psyops that we're talking about, like having everybody eat animal foods, having everyone diverted with this perverse over sexualization of everything, having everybody follow along and believe that materialistic science and materialism in general. And then the banking psyop is basically how these people got so rich. And you have what's called fractional reserve banking and central banks, centralized banks. So every country has a central bank. And like in the United States, we have the Federal Reserve. If people think it's a governmental agency, it's really not. It's a private, it's run by bankers. It has very little government oversight at all. They pretty much do what they want.
Yeah, it's very
And
anomalous,
they
very
print the
strange.
money. But you have this fractional reserve banking where if I go into a bank and I want to borrow some money, they give me say $100, and then they create on their books, they give me $100 as a loan, but they create roughly $90 as
Yeah,
they only need
out
10
of
they
thin
only
air,
need ten
boom,
dollars
they have
as
an asset.
to
Yeah,
hold it
yeah,
back. So
yeah.
they create an asset on their books of $90, and now
Hmm.
I owe them the money. And so people do this to buy their houses, to finance their businesses, to buy their cars, all these things. And churches do it, and everybody, they're borrowing money for everything. And if people, and then of course they've been engineering for centuries these boom and bust cycles where the economy expands and the economy contracts. And every time it contracts, people can't pay the banks back. Then the banks come in and they just take everything. Well, even if people have paid, $100,000 in their house, but they can't make that one payment, they keep all the money, plus they take the house.
Yeah,
I
wow.
mean,
Yeah,
that's what
unbelievable
happens.
deal.
People lose the house after all that money they put into it, and the banks keep all the money. They take the house, and then the bank sells the house and gets all the
Yeah,
money again. And so
all legal.
gradually, as the decades go by, the banking class has amassed unbelievable amounts of wealth and it just keeps compounding. And now there are these large asset management firms like BlackRock, State Street, Fidelity, and
Goldman.
all these Vanguard and so forth, and Goldman Sachs and so forth. And these are multi-trillion-dollar uh, companies that own stock in every corporation, in every segment of the capitalist economy. So they own all the car manufacturers and all the hotel chains and all the airline chains and all of the everything, whatever. There's no competition. I mean, people think there's competition, but it's all owned by the same people. So it's
Yeah.
a big illusion. They own the drug companies. They own everything. And
Yeah. The
so they're
concentration
with
is
that
insane.
wealth, they're able to basically create, since they own the media, they own Hollywood, they own the government, they own politicians, they own democracy, so-called democracy. I mean, it's all owned by a few people. So a lot of it is a big show, and we have to understand how this has happened. And it's the banking system in general. And when you owe money to someone, they control you. That's one of the reasons
Yeah.
I've never in my life I have never borrowed one penny
Yeah.
from. I just never have. I've been able by a miracle somehow. I just worked and I didn't buy anything until I could pay for it. And I didn't have any money. I left home with
Yeah.
my
And you were
brother.
keen on the control aspect, on the
I
or
just
being
didn't.
control aspect.
I wasn't going
Yeah.
to go into debt. I just wouldn't. I had to get food out of dumpsters, but I wouldn't borrow money.
Yeah. I think a lot of people watching uh, this is a very important point we're talking about within this whole banking space is the 1/10,000th of 1%. Like that is an insane concentration of wealth. And that concentration of wealth, I feel like is it really just it's a nexus, it's a bellwether for a lot of lies and narratives of which we were talking about here. And how they are recepted and just followed blindly. Like that
Mhm.
concentration of wealth, it's like you can't even fathom that. Like you have to not underestimate the
Yeah.
power of these narratives. I mean, the sheer power that these things have, and how invisible they hit certain thresholds where they're just invisible. They just take on
Right.
whole new lines of just strength and
Right.
conditioning.
Yeah, that's really true. The people that we think are super rich, like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and
Yeah,
Elon Musk, those are the ones that are paid to do what they do, but behind them are the really rich. You don't even know who they are.
yeah,
And so I think, it's just good to be aware of these things, that there's tremendous power that is being um, that comes through wealth. Wealth
yeah,
basically translates into power, and the main power is narrative control, controlling what we think about reality. That we need to. There's viruses out there. I better get a vaccine. Or,
yeah,
there's these that those people are bad. We have to go to war against them. Whatever it is. So
yeah.
that those narratives, we have to learn to have discernment and
Keep our
question
wits
them.
about us, like you
Yeah.
said. Keep our wits about us. I know the next one is germ theory, number 5.
Yeah.
And
So basically, germ theory is fascinating. And I just finished reading a book called "Can You Catch a Cold?" which I've read quite a
I
few
saw
books. There's
that.
another one
Yeah,
called "What Really Makes You Ill." Now, these are books done by researchers who have really looked deeply into so-called germ theory. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but the basic idea is that if I get a cold or something like that, it's not from viruses or bacteria. It's basically the body cleaning out poisons. And it's a good thing, right? I mean, it's like we're cleaning, we got a runny nose or sore throat, or we throw up, or we have
yeah.
diarrhea. That's all the
Equilibriating.
body
Yeah,
cleansing
yeah,
toxins. We shouldn't try to stop that from happening. But we're being bombarded with poisons. There's over 80,000 different toxic chemicals that have been invented in labs that come out of petroleum, petrochemicals that are used as pesticide, herbicides, fungicides, flame retardants, plasticizers, all kinds of things, hormone disrupting things. And they're in products and they're spewed into the environment. They're in the air, the water, the food. We take them in. These were never on planet Earth. And so
yeah,
it's making people sick. But we have to understand that there's huge industries, the petroleum industry, the petrochemical industry, and the pharmaceutical industry all come out of one place. They're all petroleum. And so the more people get sick, the more petroleum is needed. But they don't want you to think it's from poisons. They want you to think it's from viruses. It's from
yeah,
germs. Germs are the problem. But don't worry,
yeah,
we have vaccines. We can give you the vaccines
yeah,
so you won't get the
yeah,
germs. More
yeah,
more poison. Put in, just poisoning us more and more. And then we believe in contagion. Like he's going to make me sick. And they're really
yeah.
I
Fear,
don't
more
believe
fear.
in I've gotten to the point now where I really think the only contagion is psychological. There
Yeah,
isn't any other contagion. There's nobody can ever make me
yeah,
sick by what? By getting too close and coughing in my face. And it's
Yeah.
fascinating to read
And you haven't been sick
all
in a
these
long time, or you
studies.
don't get sick.
I mean, yeah, well, yeah, I never get sick, but I mean, the thing is, if you read these studies, like when the swine flu, so-called swine flu, was going around, or Spanish flu, they called it back in
Oh,
1918,
yeah, you talked about
1919,
that.
people were getting so sick. And they don't talk about the fact that they were releasing massive quantities of toxic gas. It was World War I, huge quantities of
Oh,
these
yeah.
toxic gas. It was, and they were also vaccinating everybody. They also had just invented aspirin, and they were just giving way too much aspirin. They didn't know how much, and they were just poisoning people with aspirin. But they blamed it all on a flu. So they did these experiments where they would take hundreds of soldiers, and they would have people that were sick. They seemed to be sick. They were, had all the symptoms and everything, and they would have them cough in their face and spit in their face and take their secretions and put it up their
Yeah.
noses, and they would inject it into their skin, and they could never get anyone sick
Couldn't
that
even
way.
get
They
them
couldn't
sick.
do it.
That's incredible. That's
They could never get
that's
anybody sick.
incredible. In a town.
And they did
Yeah.
this for decades. They did these experiments for decades,
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
get people sick by sneezing and blowing and kissing and hugging, whatever they could do. They
Just couldn't
couldn't
do it.
ever transmit. So I think, we have to understand that most of these so-called pandemics there's some kind of poisoning going on, or there's some kind of terrible nutrient deficiency, perhaps, where people are really eating or half starved to death, and they get very weak and they get sick. But it's not spreading. So there's a whole long discussion. We can go into that in depth. But
Yeah.
basically, this is the situation. It's like, I give the example. I'll just say it briefly. If you're at a hotel, say, and I've seen this, you've been in a hotel for a conference for like 3 days, and the first day, somebody starts coughing and sneezing, and everybody's like, "Oh, stay away from me! I don't want to catch your
Yeah.
cold," And so then by the second day, there's maybe 10 or 15 people are coughing and sneezing, and then by the end, there's like maybe 100 people that are kind of coughing and sneezing, and they, "Oh man, look at this! Everybody
Yeah.
spread it to everybody." And then the maintenance man of the hotel says, "I'm sorry, everybody. We had a malfunction in the air
A
conditioning
leak or
equipment,
something.
and we were
Yeah.
spewing a poisonous gas in here a little bit." And so that's but it's fiction now, so
Yeah.
don't worry, everybody will be okay.
But that's
So that
psychological confirmation bias.
yeah,
Yeah.
but people were poisoned, and some people are more sensitive than others, so they'll start coughing more soon. Other
Yeah.
people don't notice it that much; they're not that sensitive, so it takes them a couple of days before they start feeling kind of, this is air's not very good
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. There's
And the
factors.
same thing happens in the environment. Some people are very sensitive, and some people, like with cell towers, they can feel it right away, and they get sick. Other people, they don't get sick right away. They don't notice it, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's not healthy.
It has
So
a
we're
staged
being
effect. Yeah.
bombarded with
Yeah.
toxins, electromagnetic toxins, chemtrails, all kinds of other stuff. So some people are more sensitive, but instead of looking and blaming each other and blaming contagion, we should be looking at who's poisoning us and
Yeah.
stopping that. That's the
They
whole
sleight
point.
of
That's the
hand that
psyop.
narrative in there. It's like a sleight of hand while they just keep doing these, yeah,
Right.
industrial activities that just create
Right.
massive amounts of wealth. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big one. I was kind of new to a lot of that. I know you wrote a bit about that in Food for Freedom, or I think you did.
Yeah, I
But
did.
that
Yeah.
writing was, there was a lot of very profound things in there in the writing as well. The next one is or I'm sorry, population control.
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah.
next one.
The last two are um, population, overpopulation. There's too many people. We've been told that. I've been told that since I was born. Too many people on the earth, population explosion. We can't support all these people. And the last one, the seventh one, is climate change. That's even a newer one. That's only about maybe 30 years old. But
Yeah,
most people have like a lot of younger people have been living with climate change their entire lives. Like, oh, the
yeah,
climate's going to collapse, and we've all been living with this overpopulation idea for a long time. Again, these are, overpopulation. I'll focus on that just briefly. Is really the new face of eugenics. And eugenics is the idea of breeding people, breeding those who have good genes and not allowing those who don't have good genes to breed, try to get rid of them. And we saw, of course, in Nazi Germany, it got a bad reputation. But before that, it was big in the United States. There was many eugenics laws passed. People were not allowed to breed if they were a certain race or didn't have a certain IQ. They were sterilizing people back in the 1920s and 1930s. And the idea, and then Malthus, had this idea that we're going to overpopulate the planet. And I think it's true on one level. If you have people eating meat, which is ridiculously wasteful, then you create an overpopulation of cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, ducks, geese, factory farm fish to feed all these people. And you have to grow all this food to feed all these cows and pigs and chickens. And you can't do it. It's impossible. It's terrible. So there's an overpopulation of not of people, but of carnivorous humans. But if we're vegans, we can feed everyone on we only have 8 billion people supposedly right now. I mean, who knows how many we really have in these estimates. But anyway, say we have 8 billion. That we could feed everyone on a tiny fraction of the land if we're eating plant-based foods. So we could have, who knows how many, we could have a lot more people, and it wouldn't be any kind of problem to the earth. And we don't know what the ideal number of people is, but we're now in a situation of population collapse, actually, as a result of this. I mean, this hammering for decades. Don't have kids. Kids are bad. You're overpopulated. Don't, be good to the planet and don't have children. I mean, that narrative is, again, it's a direct violation of the fact that we're beautiful beings, and having healthy families is a beautiful thing, and having children is a beautiful thing. And I think there's we have to obviously decide what's the right number of children to have. But right now, virtually every industrialized country, and most every country in the entire world, except for a few, are below replacement rate. We're below the 2.1 births per woman that would keep the population stable. We're down at 1.8, 1.7, 1.6. I mean, some of the, Korea is way down. Japan, the United States is below. All the European countries are below, replacement. Even a lot of the poor countries are below replacement. It's only a few countries that are above replacement in Africa, and they're coming down very quickly also. So when you get people more and more sick, they can't have kids. People are too sick to have kids, and the economy, people don't want to have kids. Like in Korea, it's like too expensive to have kids. Nobody wants to have kids. It's too expensive. And then it's kind of shamed, having kids is kind of a shameful thing. You don't care about the future, or you don't care. And, there's this whole narrative. And then, women don't want to have kids because they're off chasing a career. I mean, there's this whole thing of having men and women competing for money. It's very hard, I think, on human society to have this kind of mentality. And it turns everybody into a slave. Eventually, it turns everybody into competitive. Children pay a price since the parents aren't there. They're all working because it's so expensive to buy a house. Then the state takes the kids and so-called educates the kids and brainwashes them in ways that are not healthy, because they can force the narrative right into the children. So we have to realize there's an agenda behind all of this. The overpopulation, all these things, they all work together. Contagion, making kids have all these poisons put into them from the time they're little kids that causes chronic disease for the rest of their lives. And then they can't have children. They don't want to have children. They don't have enough money to have children. And pretty soon it's called culling the herd. When you have too many cows, you just got to get rid of some of them. It's easy. It's better for them. It's better for us. When the controllers look at humanity like a herd of livestock. So we should wake up out of that, basically.
It's all one big web where each unit of the web feeds off the other, and herderism really underlies everything. It's like the soil that is underneath the big web of everything, I guess. And climate change. I know we've talked about climate change. One of our
I won't talk too long about that. I mean, it's amazing that Bill Gates now says, "Well, actually, that's not a problem."
Oh yeah,
Sorry about
I heard
that,
about that.
Yeah, I spent billions of dollars of my own money campaigning to stop climate change, and now I think,
And
oh,
then all of a
actually, it's not a
sudden,
problem.
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and
so
Trump's right on the back end of it. Yeah, that's what. See, what I was right. Look what Bill Gates said. And,
right,
it's
right.
all this huge like circus.
It is. It really is. But they're still pushing it. They're not going to let go of it for quite
Yeah,
a while. They're
yeah,
having caught this thing in Brazil, cutting down millions of trees to make a road into the Amazon to talk about climate change, and flying in from with their private jets from all over the world, telling all of us that we have to reduce our carbon footprint. I mean, it's such a joke. And
unbelievable.
carbon is the, carbon and water and sunlight are the three foundations of life on planet Earth. And to
Yeah,
demonize carbon and say it's a pollutant, carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. It is the life of plants. And one of the
yeah,
most wonderful things that's been happening over the last 150 years is that carbon dioxide has been increasing, and that has allowed more growth of forests and the reversal of desertification, especially in the last 20 or 30 years. It's not from humans. It's not human carbon. It's the carbon. There's natural carbon cycles. Most of it
yeah,
comes from the ocean and volcanoes, volcanic activity, and respiration, and different things. But all of these things go together, and we have plenty of carbon. That's greening the earth, and the temperature is warming, which is good. I mean, the worst thing is cold. Cold is what really kills and destroys human beings and civilizations. And the fact that we can even have a computer and be talking here like this and have enough technology to do this. Otherwise, if it was colder, we'd be in the caves just trying to survive, like
yeah,
people did for thousands of years in the glacial periods, interglacial periods. So it's been warming since it's interesting, there was the medieval warm period during the medieval period from about the year 1000 to about 1300, where it was so much unusually warm. And that's when things really started to get much better in Europe and globally. And there was these really high cultures evolving especially in China and also in Europe. The Renaissance started. People went up to Greenland. They were growing vegetables up in Greenland, where today there's just glaciers, because then it went down into the little ice age of the 16th, 17th, and 18th, and into the early 19th century, which was very cold and miserable. And that's
yeah,
why a lot of people came to the United States. They were trying to escape starvation in Europe because it was so cold. And so now it's been warming since 1850 or so. It's been warming again. It's because of
yeah,
the sun. The sun output changed, and it changes. It's not anything else. I mean, it's the sun and it's other things, cosmic rays, and we don't know. I mean, climate is one of those things that we'll never understand fully.
yeah,
It's something. So to say that science is settled and we know what's causing climate change is a joke. It's
yeah.
ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
And
Yeah,
it's being used to take away our freedom of movement. That's the whole
yeah.
idea. So we have to understand that. Like, if you can get people to say, "Oh yeah, I won't drive, I won't fly, I'll just stay right here."
Follow my
It's like a
orders. Yeah,
lockdown. It's basically a
yeah.
lot. It's the narrative behind 15-minute cities, to get
Smart
everybody to
cities.
never go anywhere. And that's what we do to cows and pigs and chickens. If you want to enslave them, you just say, put a fence around them and say, now I own you. They want to put
Yeah,
a fence around us and say, now we own you because of climate change. So we should never, ever, ever, ever
yeah.
support the idea of anthropogenic climate change, because it's a
Yeah,
total lie.
anthropogenic. Yeah. What some people
Anthropogenic. There's climate change. Of course, there's climate
exactly.
change,
Yeah,
but
what some people don't realize.
anthropogenic is the
Yeah,
key. It's not caused by humans,
exactly.
and it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah.
There's
They
other
think that we're saying,
forces.
I mean, obviously the climate is changing. Everything
Right.
changes. There's, it's impermanent in that sense. But the narrative depicts it much in a very direct, very
Well,
definitive way.
the thing is, I mean, how do humans change the climate? I mean, we cut down rainforests. I mean, that's
Yeah,
hard on local weather. That can be hard on weather, because forests really are like they're like fountains of water. They bring water up. They help create clouds. So we don't
yeah,
want to cut down forests. That's what animal agriculture does. It destroys ecosystems, and that can cause some anomalies. But the idea of changing the climate through carbon dioxide spewing of burning fuels, or having a lot of cows farting, whatever, burping, all these things. These are such tiny, and scientists understand this, but they don't want it. The narrative doesn't allow it to come out that that the human contribution to carbon dioxide is only about between 4 and 5%. It's considered about 4.5% is human. The other 96% of carbon is generated by ocean, like I said earlier, respiration of animals, by plants decomposing, by volcanic activity, by carboniferous rocks eroding. All these things are contributing to there's a carbon cycle. There's many things contribute. So burning fossil fuels, coal and so forth, it does contribute some, but it's about 4%.
Yeah.
But then when you look at the relationship between carbon dioxide and climate, there isn't a strong relationship.
Yeah.
It's water vapor. Water vapor is the greenhouse gas. Again, carbon dioxide is about at the most 4%. Methane, nitrous oxide, all these, together they're about 4 or 5%. So we're talking about human activity by changing carbon is 4% of 4% of 5%, which works out to about like 1/2 of 1% impact on the climate we have with, I know, even if we burned all the coal in the entire planet, it's a drop in the bucket. So this alarmism of it's just made up. And we have to understand that. I went along with it for almost like 8 years. From 2006, when Al Gore came out with his movie Inconvenient Truth, everybody jumped on board the climate change thing. All the vegans, especially, go vegan for the climate. I was right there too. But then I realized it's a psyop. I gradually realized it's another psyop. So there's many psyops.
These
I
psyops
think
are
that's the
keen,
thing,
they're
James.
clever,
Pardon me?
and these psyops are keen and clever, and they're very
Yeah.
diligently built out. And there's a lot of thought and architecture that goes into these things.
Oh,
You know,
trillions of dollars every
yeah,
year goes into manufacturing and promoting on every level in school. I mean, think of it, younger kids, like people in their 20s now or 30s, since first grade, the teacher told them this climate change.
yeah,
They can't think. You mean that's not true? Are you kidding me? That's like saying the earth is flat or something. It's like, no, 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 no.
yeah. And the more
You know,
time that goes by, the more their experience of that mess.
we've just been totally brainwashed,
It
programmed
keeps
into
getting
this.
solidified. And it keeps getting harder to get into that inertia and to kind of dispel that inertia.
Yeah.
But yeah, these have been very profound, and these are the biggest ones. These are the real titans of
That's the thing. These are the big psyops. There's been every war is always a
wars.
psyop. Nobody wants to go to war. So they always have psyops to get us into a war. 9/11, methods, weapons of mass destruction, like with Iraq. And there's endless. Vietnam War all the wars had psyops, and there's many others. There's so many, but the whole idea is to just develop our discernment, and like you said, to come back and remember the big one. If we just only do one, do animal agriculture, go vegan. Going vegan is the greatest liberation. But I would say don't stop there. Look into these other ones, and then do the spiritual work to quiet our mind. And like you talked about a little bit, the intuition. We have an inner guidance system that can help us to navigate all these things and to tell the truth from the false. Because ultimately, who do we trust, right? I mean, can we really trust an outside authority? That's dangerous. And I don't want people shouldn't believe me. Don't believe me. I'm sharing what I think. Find out. We have to really learn to trust our
I
inner
think
authority.
I think it just happened for a reason that I decided to get this book the other day, because now at least I can, and I got it before our interview. I think you'd agree with me on this, that this is a great reference for people to learn about intuition. The book's called Your Inner Islands, and the keys to intuitive living. I've just started it, but I can't wait to go on this adventure, because the way you write it seems like it's a bit of an adventure. You kind of do some great storytelling in this one. There's some cones that are kind of out on each, or at least on the first island. There's kind of something for you to think about and try to get to the bottom of while it's in the backdrop while you're reading, and then I think it will be unveiled. And just a really awesome exploratory canvas of which the book kind of is going to lay out. But intuition, would you say that is the remedy to kind of to seeing these narratives for what they are and to keeping our wits about us in this day and age, like developing our intuition?
Yes, I think it's developing our intuition, which has really been neglected in our society, and also something in the spiritual traditions, it's called discriminating awareness wisdom. So it's kind of a combination of intuition and, I guess you'd say, analysis, logical analysis. I mean, like, just be having we shouldn't throw away our logical and analytical intellectual capacity to kind
Yeah,
of figure things out. But by itself, it's not enough. It can be fooled. We need this other aspect, the intuitive. It's more spiritual, and it's more just going deeper and knowing directly from another level. That's a capacity we all have. It's direct knowing. The other type is dualistic. It's like I'm here and I'm trying to figure that over there.
yeah,
Intuitive knowing, the dualism dissolves and there's just knowing. Aha. And it's
yeah,
like suddenly it's revealed on another level, and it's a deeper type of knowing. And that's really precious. When that happens, then there's much more freedom. Then you can start to see through lots of different illusions much more
yeah,
easily. So they both
yeah,
have to work together. But in our society, in our educational system, both of them are neglected. We're basically taught just to trust authorities and believe
yeah.
these things and learn this. We're not taught to
Yeah,
think
don't even be
critically,
rational. Yeah,
analytically, and we're not definitely not thought to listen
yeah,
in, quiet our mind and listen within to the inner authority. Neither
yeah.
one of those. So these are things we have to do on our own. So this book, yeah, it focuses on the intuition, which is the
I
most
like how you mentioned that because
important.
I talk a lot about intuition, and I do, of course, still feel a need for rational thinking as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that can help us, and like you mentioned in the book, it can also help us once we get. It can also help us take, or it can help take us to seeing these truths within our inner knowing in these canvases that are within us. Rationality can help us develop our intuition, or at least take us to the point to where we jump off that cliff and we start having some faith in ourselves. I'd love to read to kind of finish off a
Okay.
bit from the end of your essay, because I know everybody, we talked about herderism as the number one. So herderism is like the biggest psyop that underlies all the other ones, and is kind of involved in each of the psyops in its own right as
Yeah.
well. But at the end of Will's writing, he writes this: animal liberation is the doorway to human freedom and to the healthy spiritual awareness that connects us with our wise inner guidance system that helps us navigate today's challenging, mostly digital terrain. Understanding that even though most of the recognized experts and authorities have been compromised, we are each nevertheless gifted with an ever present inner authority with which we can connect in order to illuminate the path of our daily life. Cultivating awareness of the psyop narratives and deceptions within which we are all immersed from birth is the surest way to strip away their power over us and to raise the vibration of our consciousness to a higher level where their spell is broken and they are dispelled. Um, yeah, so I wanted to read that paragraph, and I
Yeah,
think that's very,
that paragraph is, yeah, that's the end of the essay that I wrote called The Seven Deadly Psyops, which if anyone wants to read the entire essay, you can just
oh,
go to
yes, please
World
tell us.
Peace Diet, just on our website, worldpeacediet.com. And just click on essays and then the most recent one, actually that one.
Yeah,
And I think it's an overview of these psychological operations that I think if we don't make an effort to understand them, we will be continue to well unfortunately we'll continue to lose our freedom
yeah.
and our
It's
health,
incumbent on us to
and
understand them.
it's
Yeah,
not a pretty picture for our children, I think.
yeah,
So it's very important to our best to tackle these issues and to understand what's really going on here on planet Earth
yeah.
during these times.
You also call it taking responsibility for the quality of our consciousness. And that's really what this is. I know you've mentioned, and I brought it up, that, in many ways, it can be just as damaging when we remain oblivious and choose to remain oblivious to certain narratives, compared to damage that the actual narrative's exact. This is very damaging too, remaining unaware, not,
Yeah.
expanding our awareness into things, and whether it be willful or non-willful, I mean, it has to be incumbent upon us to seek out these things that are so heavily saturated in the world.
That's a good point. A lot of people, like for example, with number one, herderism, they
Yeah.
don't want to know. Don't tell me about the
Yeah.
terrible pain and suffering of
Yeah.
cows and pigs and chickens. It's too hard for me to bear it. But I sure do like my burger.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of courage, I think is the word, or
Yeah.
just a willingness to grow, to say, I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out about what these animals go through. And that's liberating. It's so liberating. Then I'm not going to contribute to it anymore. It's the same thing with the other ones. To really look into these ugly sexualization, the ugliness of materialist science, of the banking system, of all these lies that are fed to us. It takes an effort. We'd rather just believe what they say on TV and go
with the
but
flow.
that's not an option if we really want to be part of a positive future for humanity. We cannot go along and not question these things.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you so much
Thanks
for
so
this
much.
interview.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, some people were asking in the chat, the book is called Your Inner Islands. Your Inner Islands. And also don't forget about the World Peace Diet and the World Peace Way and Food for Freedom, which we've talked about.
World Peace Way right here.
World Peace Way. I got to
Actually,
get it in tangible form. I have
yeah,
it on
yeah. This will be released within the next day or two as an audiobook.
Oh,
Food
very
for
cool.
Freedom and World Peace Diet are already audiobooks. Everything's on is available as an ebook, and then also the Inner Islands is coming as an audiobook. It's coming.
Oh, very cool.
It's
Are
I've
you
already
narrating
recorded it.
these?
I'm just
Yeah.
editing the recording. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I see. Very cool. Well, that's going to be exciting. So you're still working. You're really working in kind of refining the content and really putting the word out there. We really appreciate you, Will, and everything that you do. And thanks again for coming back to the channel to share this one with us.
Thank you, James. I love what you're doing too.
So,
Just get out there and be with the people and share the
yeah.
message. It's so
Yeah, and
great.
you've inspired me greatly since we began. You told me in our first live stream that, I've passed this on to other activists, that the main thing that we want to be doing when sharing with others is not kicking them when they're down, and instead having conversations of partnership and love, and not debates where we are yelling. And that is, I think, the main thing when it comes to outreach with others, is seeing ourselves in them, because that is indeed the case. We're all interconnected. So I
Right.
really appreciate your guidance, and that's helped me. And hopefully it's helped people I've talked to on the street as well, to see things clearly. So,
Beautiful.
okay, well, I'm sure this won't be the last time we do an interview. I'm sure.
No.
So I'll look forward to the next one. I know you have some traveling you're doing in the next few
Yeah.
months.
Yeah, if anyone wants to see where we'll be, you can go to our website, worldpeacediet.com. We have our upcoming events scheduled. We're going to be on the road for 5 months. So I'm just right now working to get our little camper van all ready to go, and adding a little extra few things. And we'll be giving lectures through Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, and then on the way back through most of those same states, kind of staying south. But if you're in the south, anytime from November, December, January, February, March, we'll be back in April. Yeah, for 5 months.
Okay.
So
awesome. Well, have fun, and I'm sure it'll be.
Spread the word. We'll be giving presentations on developing intuition, actually, on veganism, and some concerts of original piano music. And my wife, Madeline, with her art, beautiful art paintings and things. Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome.
So,
okay.
All right.
Well, till the next
Thank
time.
You.
And bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And keep all those in mind. Start looking out for those deadly psyops, and start being aware and keen to what's going on around us. So thanks, everybody, for joining. It's been a lot of fun. And thank you, Will.
Thank you, James. Been great. Thanks.
All right. Bye, guys. End stream. Okay.